All right, guys, so I'm going to come to you talk about a couple classes coming up this weekend. On Saturday, we've got injured shooter rifle, injured shooter pistol. We also have an advanced night vision live fire class Saturday night, which is going to be awesome. And then on Sunday is Tactical Medicine 1. So I'm going to just briefly go through some of these. So TACMED 1, I think, is a class that everybody should take. Whether a responsible citizen or gun owner or anyone, military, law enforcement, you should take this class. I'll tell you why. We've actually had quite a few students who have taken TACMED 1 or the Stop the Bleed series, save their life or somebody else's life after taking this class. We've had a student that saved a lady who was in a car wreck in front of them, another car wreck where they were T-boned in an intersection, saved his daughter's life, chainsaw slip up, a boating accident, a kitchen accident involving a paring knife. There's been a couple others, concealed carry accident. And so there's quite a few reasons to take this. It's not just for the deployed soldier, it's also for anyone who carries a gun or is around dangerous objects, which we are all the time. We had a tree cutting service, one of the guys there. And so, this stuff can happen anywhere. This class, yes, it's for deployed soldiers. There's also plenty of civilian and military and law enforcement applications. So we're going to go through the March algorithm, how to treat massive bleeding, how to secure airway, patient movement, things like respiratory injuries, circulation injuries, how to address shock. And so just basic bandaging, we'll even cover some of that. And I think it's so important, especially for like people who just want to be prepared civilians, because if you and your kid are in a boating accident, or you're on vacation in a boating accident, or a car wreck, or you're cutting up some stuff and it slips, or at your job site, we teach Stop the Bleed to plenty of corporations around the state. It's also great for preparedness. These skills are going to be so handy in a preparedness mentality. I think a lot of people will take preparedness classes or shooting classes because they feel sexy, right? But the TACMED class doesn't feel sexy. You are far more likely to use TACMED in a good quality medical course than you are statistically to ever need what you learn in a good quality shooting course. Medical injuries are far more likely to happen, even in a preparedness society or a preparedness situation. If you look at fallen societies or natural disasters, far more people suffer from medical emergencies than they do getting shot. And so I really want you guys to sign up for that class Sunday, 9 to 5. And so you can't beat it. We also talk about contents of a med kit, what we would keep in things like a first aid kit versus a trauma kit versus a mass cas kit. We'll go through some active shooter medical considerations you can go back and teach your children. And so that's really what we're after as far as TACMED goes. Can't recommend enough. Injured shooter rifle and pistol are actually two other classes that are newer to us. We cover them in a few of our other classes, but specifically, we're going to look at how to treat yourself in those moments. They're going to be scenario-based classes, but it's also going to be how to get your pistol back in the fight, how to get your rifle back in the fight one-handed or from the ground. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through a Stop the Bleed block where you guys learning about tourniquets and wound packing and things like that. So we'll have a Stop the Bleed block in a tourniquet session in pistol and then a packing session in rifle, just because statistically it's treatment protocols much more likely to happen if you look at stats. I also think it's really important for you guys to know, if you look at statistics, this is backed up by our Force on Force classes. This is backed up by a few other fellow instructors' Force on Forces classes that we pair up with. This is also backed up by law enforcement statistics. If you look at where us as good guys are most likely to get hit in some of these CQB and self-defense situations, left hand is actually the most common place, followed by right forearm, And so if we look at that, the likelihood that I need to work my pistol one hand, apply tourniquets one-handed, pack one-handed, then run my pistol or my carbine one-handed is actually quite high. And so we're going to look at how to clear double feeds, reloads, how to position ourselves behind cover, how to even work flashlights and without if it's low light scenarios. About 52% of law enforcement shootings are done during low light or no light scenarios. So where we have to think about adverse light conditions. So we're going to work on that. So it's also a mindset thing. We don't ever want to be down and add the count in some of these situations where we're injured. Take a law enforcement or civilian self-defense application. We don't want to lose the ability to use that hand, and then we've never worked our pistol one-handed. We've never applied tourniquets one hand. We've never positioned ourselves behind cover, still had to deal with a threat. So how do we prioritize the tactical and the medical? And so, how do we mitigate recoil? How do we draw left hand only? How do we mitigate that blood and what that's doing to our psyche and our confidence levels in those moments? So I think that there's hesitancy for a lot of shooters to sign up for some of those classes because they don't seem as cool as like recoil mitigation workshop. And they're both really important. One focuses on the shooting, the other one focuses on the fighting. And you really need both to be an effective and prepared person. Same thing with TACMED. If you look and you say, I'm a prepper, or I'm a soldier, but you haven't taken a med class in 20 years, I'm going to call you out and say, let's back up. There's some deficiencies in your preps. There's some deficiencies in your skill set and knowledge. And so really, guys, what both of those are is it gives us more tools for our toolbox, but it also gives us a different mentality shift, especially in things like injured shooter, injured rifle, injured pistol, where you might have to work your carbine one-handed. You might have to work your carbine off of adverse conditions. How do I use cover? How do I have a low light situation with a carbine where a target might be 50, 75 yards away? I'm down one-handed, but still have to work a flashlight and shoot off that carbine. There's different things. And I don't want you guys to end up in a situation where that might happen to you and you've never worked through those before. What we see is there's that mentality of, I'm just going to lay here and yell for a medic. You turn into this wounded gazelle that just lays there. And so this is really important from a shooter's and prepper's mentality. I also think any time that we can work our mindset, we need to. What injured shooter is, it's teaching us to fight through injuries and fight through getting knocked down. TACMED, it's prioritizing that tactical and medical dilemma and learning how to treat some of those injuries so we're not helpless. The last thing I want to do is watch one of my loved ones bleed out or I feel helpless in these situations. It's confidence, guys, and that's what it is. And I think that's important even through life. If you look at the story of Joseph in the Bible, where Joseph is going from lead brother and the chosen brother to all of a sudden he's in a pit, and then he gets sold into slavery, and then he becomes the lead slave of Potiphar's house, and then he gets thrown into prison. And then from prison, he kind of rises up through the ranks of prison and becomes this trusted prisoner. And then he gets thrown to the palace, which would not have been a place where he wanted to be, and it was uncomfortable. And then he becomes prince, and so there's these times where there's plenty of examples of scripture, and then in real life, I go through it all the time where there's setbacks or there's setups, where sometimes you go through something and it's a prison, and sometimes you go through something and it's a palace. But it's staying focused and fixated in that fight, going, hey, I have a task, mission, goal, objective. I know what to do here. I've been here before. And even if I haven't been here before, I've trained for it. I've prepared myself mentally for it. I've prepared myself spiritually or physically for it. So I think that's why scripture is so important, where it says, seek first the kingdom. And it says oftentimes, if you look at Peter walking on the water, it's that our eyes have to be so fixated. And what that does is it gives us that mentality shift to say, yeah, I can do this. I can overcome this. It's gone are the days of laying there. It's easy for us to go with the fight. It's easy for us to lay there and yell for a medic, and then put him at risk. Or it's easy to abdicate that responsibility as men or as parents or as soldiers or teammates. It's easy for us to abdicate that fight, to abdicate that responsibility. But through that fight, through overcoming, is how we conquer. It's to where that's separated. It's the only way that we're going to see victory in those moments is through confidence and through having the ability to fight that battle. And, I think so oftentimes we talk about in life, oh man, we got ambushed. And I hear people come to me in some of our like men's groups and things. And they say, man, I was ambushed by this, or I was, this caught me off guard, or I'm struggling with this. And my question to myself a lot of times when I find myself doing that is, well, is this an ambush, or was this just something I knew was an issue and maybe saw coming but did nothing to prepare for? And so my challenge to you is to get into some of this training that might not seem as important. And sometimes working on us doesn't seem like the most important thing, or it seems challenging, or it seems different, or it's not as cool as helping, blame someone else. It's not as cool as putting the blame on the spouse, or getting in the Word, or getting plugged into a community, or getting in counseling for some of you guys, or whatever you're going through. But having that ability and that mental fortitude and training to say, hey, I've been here before, to come alongside other guys and say, hey, this is how we do this, is awesome. And it gives our confidence high. That's why overall in Scripture talks about being confident and steadfast. And it's because Scripture shows us what to do, and they have been here. And so we can be assured, we can stay in the fight. And that's what this is all about, guys, is staying in the fight, saving ourselves and saving others. And that's really what our whole walk is supposed to be. Challenge you guys, get into class. By the way, if you have nods and suppressors, you want to go do cool stuff like bounding team movements, and using cover and concealment and different things under nods, Saturday's advanced night vision class is awesome. But I highly suggest you come take some med classes. We've got like Tag Med 2 coming up next month. We've got a few other classes coming up, med classes coming up, CQB classes in October. Our October schedule is looking pretty good between CQB and vehicle defense and Tag Med 2. Bunch of awesome courses. So come on out and let's focus on getting in the fight, staying in the fight, and not just doing what's easy.